Hello, welcome to Carib Nation. I'm Doris Dean, and my guests today are members of the Rastafari movement who are going to educate us on an issue surrounding a piece of land called Pinnacle Estates. My guests are Kwasi Bonsu, an attorney in the Rastafari movement, Donisha Prendergast, who is, she will tell us her history. She has a connection to some famous people, and Nana Faraika, who is a historian and elder in the Rastafari movement. Thank you all for joining us, and welcome to Carib Nation. First, we will ask Nana Faraika, who is an elder and a historian in the Rastafari movement, to tell us a little bit about the history of Pinnacle Estate.
Leonard Percival Howell was a very mysterious person. He's known in history as the first Rastafari, but he was almost obscure from the pages of Rastafari history. He was born in Redlands, Clarendon, Jamaica on June 16, 1898, the first of 11 children. Leonard started traveling as a young man. He went to Panama, and from there, Costa Rica, and from there, he went to the United States. When he came back in 1932, he began to preach about Haile Selassie as Rastafari. Haile Selassie had been crowned in Ethiopia in 1930. He had a lot of people in different areas listening to him. And then the colonial government, because Jamaica was then ruled by England, they did not like what was going on, and so they locked him up for sedition because he was telling them to not pay attention to the king in England, but to another king. They could have that charge of sedition against him. And they locked him up for 2 years. When he came out, then they also put him back in jail, I think this time in the mental hospital. So finally, he decided to buy Pinnacle. In 1940, he bought 500 acres of land for himself and his followers, and he established it in Sligoville in St. Catherine. Rastas from all over Jamaica came to live at Pinnacle. But then in 1941, the colonial government raided Pinnacle and chased off the Rastas and locked up a lot of them. And then they also locked up Howell. When he came out of jail, he re-established Pinnacle, and for 10 years they lived in peace. In 1954, Pinnacle was not only raided, but this time razed. They burnt down all the buildings, burnt down where Howell used to live, stole up money, thousands of pounds that they found, and chased off all the people. And that was really the end of Pinnacle as a thriving Rastafari commune. Now, after all these years, the property had been sold to developers. And there was a struggle within Rastafari to retain it as the incubator of the movement and a sacred spot. Negotiations are taking place between leading Rastafari and the Jamaican government as to how to resolve this problem of having Rastafari gain their rights to the land that belonged to them once and was now being sold off to developers. The house that Howell lived in has been declared, that lot has been declared as a national heritage spot. So the struggle is to get the site also declared. The 500 acres or what compensation can be made to the developers and Rastas to coexist.
Let me start off by asking you, Donisha, to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and then tell us where are we today in terms of the struggle for this piece of land. What is the situation today?
Okay, well, greetings, thanks for having us. I am a filmmaker, I'm a writer, I also find that I'm an activist within the movement of Rastafari right now. Presently, as it stands, the community is up against the forces of Babylon, trying to get back our land. As it stands, as Nana Paraika explained earlier, it is in the hands of private developers. Now we're looking at 500 acres of land as we suggest now. However, when we speak to the Howellites and Mr. Leonard Howell's sons, they explain that the land was up to 2,000 acres. So does the national paper, the Gleaner. So right now, it's a whole process of delving into the history to see exactly what it is that we're fighting for, even beyond the physical land of Pinnacle.
And you're related to Bob Marley.
Yes,
And
Rita Marley.
And Rita Marley, and I just wanted to make sure that we established that at the very beginning. I know that you skirted that, but I did want to establish that.
I find it is it's interesting to see how people react after they've heard me speak to that knowledge, because when people know who I am, they expect so much, you know.
So you try to keep that
Keep it cool.
cool. Well, thank you anyway. From an attorney's perspective, give us some idea of what land rights means for some of these indigenous people, or people who have been owners for quite some time, as this sacred land called Pinnacle in Jamaica.
Historically, land has been the basis of wealth. From the land, you can have agriculture, you can have business, and so historically, land has been very important to the indigenous people to make a livelihood. Leonard Percival Howell, the founding father of the Rastafari movement, was a man who had traveled the entire world. He had seen disenfranchisement throughout the world. He had lived in New York City. He knew that people of African descent historically had been disenfranchised from the land. They were not landowners. The process of slavery was a process by which we were taken forcibly from Africa, from our historical lands, and taken into the West, where we were brought into chattel slavery. Again, it's very difficult to build wealth, and this is why, as you stated, wars have been fought over the land. In the context of reparation, it's very important in any restorative process that you repair the damage that has been done. The whole concept of reparation springs from this concept. And so when we look at Pinnacle, we look at Leonard Howell being able to establish a self-sustaining community that was quite prosperous. You know, in Jamaica, people used to say Dirty Rasta. But this was after Leonard Howell, because of the violation, the violence that was done at Pinnacle, scattering the movement through the island. There was never a land base that the movement could grow and attain the wealth and exemplify some of the principles that Leonard Howell was teaching, following the teachings of Marcus Garvey, following the teachings of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, and some of our great leaders that were teaching us how to be independent, how to repair ourselves from slavery. And I think as the Caribbean goes and seeks reparation from the former colonial powers, it's important that we lead by example. Here it is that we have a culture, a people that are indigenous to the island of Jamaica, Rastafari, that have stamped Jamaica on the consciousness of the world. And here it is that the Jamaica government has an opportunity to restore, not as my sister so eloquently stated, it's been said that there were 2,000 acres. We do not have that. It went down to 500 acres, and now there are only 120 undeveloped acres left. And so even though we know that it could never repair the damage, but in terms of a start, it would be a powerful statement, not only in the Caribbean, but in Africa and the world, for Jamaica, which we acknowledge as being a cultural superpower, to show the world the example and restore some of the harm that was done during colonial time. And after independence, it's important to know that the persecution of Rastafari did not stop when Jamaica gained independence. And therefore, this present government also bears some responsibility for repairing some of that harm.
Nana Farika, how long has this struggle been going on, and when did it come to the surface to the point that it is now in the daily newspaper, let's say?
Well, Pinnacle was destroyed in 1954, and the movement scattered. But Howell and the hardcore followers still used to go there and have meetings and things. It was like an underground thing going on. So the consciousness was always there underneath. But to the eyes of the public, there was an attempt, which was fairly successful, to wipe the name of Howell out of the pages of history. I had an opportunity, which I was not successful in, to bring the consciousness in that after Howell died in 81, and I met with some of his followers, they knew, and I don't see it documented in the press, but they knew that the developers wanted to take the land.
I see.
And they asked me, could I help to publicize and stop it?
So, Donisha, when did the younger generation become aware and get the knowledge and the interest in following this, and what have you been able to do so far?
Well, since 2000 and what years is now 14, 2011, 2012, when I moved back to Jamaica after film school, I was doing a documentary called Rasta Soul's Journey that took me to 8 countries around the world to learn about the roots and evolution of Rastafari. And interesting, the last place we went to was Jamaica. And one of the last things I learned about Rastafari in closing that documentary was about Howells and Pinnacle. And I found it very amazing that I grew up in the Marley family as one of the quote-unquote premier Rasta families in the world, not knowing
Never
this
heard
story,
about it.
and not knowing even that Leonard Howell was the first gong. So my grandfather is called Tough Gong, but Leonard Howell was the original gong, Gong Guru Maharaj. So I took a particular interest to that, and I started to expose myself more to the Howellite community. And at first, I wasn't received with open arms and big hugs. You know, people were very aware of who I was, and so very skeptical. And looking
skeptical from the point of view that they thought that you might be intruding, or that you might be trying to change.
I think that I may be intruding, or also that I came to get something from them, which wasn't the situation. I just wanted to learn more about them and why I didn't know about them. And also, putting things into context now, Leonard Howell passed away on February the 11th, 1981. My grandfather passed away on May 11th, 1981. And so looking at the context of everything, they both passed away the same year. What does that mean? So in regards to this agitation, all of this agitation started off in November actually, when I got an email from Sister Hodesh, who is the secretary of the Leonard Howell Foundation, telling me that the developers had gone too far now, and she continued to explain, and I don't know how much I am allowed to really say on camera, but I will say the truth, that our present Minister of Youth and Culture, Lisa Hanna, has been in a relationship with the developer who has the title for Pinnacle for the past 10 years. In 2009, the government highlighted 6 lots of heritage in addition to the 120 acres. However, when the administration changed in 2011, 2012, the 6 lots and 120 acres moved to 1 lot and an eviction notice.
So the 6 lots were in addition to the 120 acres?
Yes.
How big were those 6 lots? Does anybody have any idea?
It's a 1/4 acre per lot. So you're talking about 1.5 acres that the government wants to give the Rastafari community to
out
say
of the
thank
500 or whatever was left.
Exactly.
And so this developer plans to do, has the developer indicated any intent to work with the Rastafari?
Oh,
to,
yes, definitely.
To in any way compensate the Rastafari community for?
Oh, no, not that part. He's definitely, shown his intention or his interest to work with us in terms of, he's told us, he's in the business of selling land. So if we want land, we can buy the land. and that's his clear-cut thing.
It.
But one point that I will mention is that in the early 1980s, after Mr. Howell passed away, the Rastafari community came to Mr. Lake's mother, who is the present title holder's mother, who also held the title before him, and asked her what was her intention with the land. And she communicated that she had wanted to establish a tourist space with a hotel and, pool areas, and, she would hire the Rastafari community to work on their land.
I see.
So then we can clearly see.
We go back to the same.
Yeah, man, the same kind of slavery mentality. Right. Not even to mention that the Lake family is one of the oldest slave-owning families in Jamaica. So we're talking about the children of slave masters still oppressing us.
Kwasi, tell me, do you have documentation of what the Rastafari movement has done with the land so far, or intended to do with the land? Is there a program that they can show that they have lined up for their people, as opposed to what the developer might be having in their intent?
Well, there have been plans that have been drafted. The community is currently going through a process of consultation internally, but there have been, in the past, plans that have been presented to the government by different Rastafari groups, and now we're currently trying to harmonize those plans, and there's a process that's happening and taking place. And it's important for people to know that the Rastafari community is committed to coming with one voice on Pinnacle, and also that there are plans, because the misconception is that there is no intention for this land, that we're going to just hold the land. But what the general consensus of the community is to recreate in some form what Leonard Howell did, which is to create a self-sustaining community on the land. There was agriculture on the land. That's part of the plan. A museum
now,
that
over the years, what has happened with it, though? What has been happening with this land? Has it been just sitting there, and the government or the developers have been taking piece by piece what they want? I understand that the government has dedicated the site of the home of Howell as a heritage site. How much land is that, and what has happened to that site? What is anybody doing with that site? And what about the rest of the land? Has anybody done anything with it over the last 30 years?
I think Sister Donisha, who, as you said, she's been on the land.
Been doing the research.
And she's on the land physically. It's important to know that as we speak, there are people on the land at Pinnacle.
Living there.
And Sister Donisha and some other Rastafari youth have taken the initiative at the vanguard, a lot of self-sacrifice, and they are occupying the land to bring global awareness to this very
As you said,
critical
for
issue.
53 days you've been on the land.
53 days.
So I would like to let my sister Donisha answer that question.
Yeah, describe for me, as you say, you have been on the land. How have you been on the land? Have you pitched tents? Is it a building that you're living on, and what happens there?
All right, so let me drive you through Pinnacle. When you come into the gates of what was known as Pinnacle, it is now renamed St. Jago Hills. As you drive up towards the mountaintop where Mr. Howell's house is, you'll see 3 and 4 bedroom houses spread across the property. You'll see fruit trees, you'll see animal farming spaces. These are all reminiscent of what Howell created. However, none of these spaces now belong to Rastafari. Remember that this space is now privately owned and has been subletted and sold off.
In pieces,
As we drive to the top, the bushes increase. And now we are at the top of the mountain. As you drive up, you will see the works that have been done since we've been there. We have debushed a lot of the property. We have found a lot of relics from that time. We found horseshoes. We found old work tools. We found clay items. We found shillings. We found money, you know. And we're not archaeologists. We don't even really know what we're doing, to be very honest with you, apart from just moving with a good intention. And so how are we living there? We've been pitching tents. We've been building semi-permanent structures using the wood on the property and the bamboo. So far, we've had different people come in. We had one gentleman come in, and on the first day that he was there, he built a bamboo chair, and he was teaching other ones to build the bamboo chairs. We've had ones collecting the herbs and cataloging the different herbs on the property, you know, and then we've already started to create our farming beds, and we're already growing a lot of different things, you know. So what is happening right now is the organic rehabilitation of Rastafari through Pinnacle.
I see.
So it's beyond just a physical thing that is happening with the land. By going to occupy the space, we are saying not just to the Jamaican government and not just to the Jamaican people, but also to ourselves that we are ready to stand up.
Yeah.
Yes, and to lead in the principles that was the basis of Rastafari. Remember ourselves.
How many people are there now?
Well, we have about 25 people standard, and every day we have people come and stay with us for 2-3 days. One day we had a whole family come in, their whole truck, about five kids and 2 parents, and they came and they stayed with us for 2 days. And we have water on the property, we have light, we have internet, you know. Yeah, so, and the police come and they visit us. And they cool out with us. We have had no physical altercations with the police or the residents on the property.
Now the residents, the former home of Howell, is that still a building? Is it just open space, or what? What's there?
It's remains of a building. You have the great house, and then you have the small house that was for the children. So the small house that was for the children we're now using as a makeshift kitchen and also reading resource center. And for the other house, I mean, you're talking about massive bricks. You're talking about a colonial structure that was broken down brick by brick. So it's just broken down right now, but we have plans of hopefully bringing it back to its original status.
Nana Farika, what does this mean for the next generation? What do you hope the next generation can gain from this and become involved? What do you see as the saving grace, or what would be the most beneficial thing to happen on this place?
Remember, people without knowledge of the history is people without roots. So by knowing the history, it will help to center the young people. And by knowing about the founder and his devotion for truth and right, and his devotion to having Pinnacle as a self-sustaining, peaceful place. This is important because we have a serious problem of violence and aggression in the island at this time. So this will be very contributory.
The part that has been retained as a heritage site, can either you, Kwasi, or Donisha address what is the government's responsibility there? What is it that you expect them to do with that site that can also, I would say, address or recognize the importance of Howell?
It's important to make the distinction that the declaration of the heritage site does not change land ownership. For the Rastafari community, it's important that we have ownership over this space. This is an issue of self-determination, and what the heritage site means is that alterations to the historical remains on the property cannot be made, that the landowner must respect the heritage and preserve it, but it does not restrict their ownership and how to govern that land. So they could theoretically still keep Rastafari off of the land, and that is unacceptable to the Rastafari community.
So even if they had built structures that recognized or were replicas of the original structures and are part of, let's say the government expanded that heritage area to the entire what, 500 acres or 120 acres, what would the Rastafari be satisfied with if the entire area were made a heritage site?
We want back the land in the original name. It was bought by Leonard Howell under the Ethiopian Salvation Society for disenfranchised people of Jamaica. We would like the opportunity to recreate that space. This was a space of industry for the Rastafari community, a groundation, a space where the community could express itself in fullness. Since that was broken up, the community has not been able to come back together in a oneness because we were once organized,
scattered.
We were once centralized. And so what we want to say to the government within this time is to do all the good that you can and do the right thing, because any other government in the world, knowing what you know, would do the right thing. The Rastafari community has given the Jamaican government a brand that they could never pay for, and we have continued to market that brand with no recompensation and with no real fight, you know? So we want to be clear within this time that we overstand the platform at which we stand on, and we'd like to negotiate so that the proper things can be done. And we don't want a tourist site, because that will happen anyway. Tourists will come to visit anyway. We're talking about the industry of Rastafari.
What is your next move?
Continue to raise awareness around the world and to continue to raise financing towards the rehabilitation of Pinnacle, because it is thought that the Rastafari community is disorganized and weak and poor, and this is not true, because we have the wealthiest king in the world. Our king is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. So we have no fear within this time. We recognize that the battle is already won, so this is the process that we are going through, and we are exhausting all diplomatic means. The next move is to the UN, because this is a case that must be brought to the attention of the United Nations, as Rastafari is recognized as an indigenous people, and as such, we are protected by that. So we're just doing all the good that we can, my sister.
Well, thank you all very much for educating us on the issue of Pinnacle in Jamaica, and I wish you the very best in your struggle. Thank you all very much for joining us in Carib Nation. Nana Faraika, Donisha Prendergast, and Kwasi Bonsu. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And thank you very much for watching us on Carib Nation. Remember, our motto here is one people, one culture, one Caribbean, one nation. Until next time, I'm Doris Dean.